March 27, 1991, Buenos Aires. The Argentine Congress passes a law. Just one sentence matters. 1 peso equals $1. 4 simple words. Convertibility, they called it. A technical fix to a technical problem. Hyperinflation was killing Argentina. Annual inflation had reached 3,000% in 1989. People were using wheelbarrows to carry cash. The currency was worthless. So they fixed it, literally. Fixed the peso to the dollar. By law, problem solved. And it worked. For a while, inflation dropped to nearly zero within months. The economy grew. Investment poured in. Argentina became the poster child for free market reforms. The IMF's favorite student. But there was a problem, a small problem that became visible around 1998. The peso was overvalued. Everyone knew it. The IMF knew it. The World Bank knew it. Argentine economists knew it. The solution was obvious. Devalue, adjust the peg, let the peso find its real value. Standard economic policy, done 100 times in 100 countries. But Argentina refused for 3 years. 3 years of watching the economy contract. 3 years of rising unemployment. 3 years of mounting debt. 3 years of experts saying, reverse the decision, just reverse it. They didn't. Because reversing it meant admitting they were wrong. Meant breaking a promise, meant political suicide. So instead, they held the line. Maintained the peg, insisted everything would be fine. Right up until December 2001 when everything exploded. 39 people were killed by police during the protests. Unemployment hit 23%. Poverty rose from 25.9% in 1998 to 57.5% in 2002. 5 presidents in 2 weeks. The largest sovereign default in history. All because nobody would reverse one small decision made in a closed room 10 years earlier. Today, you're going to see how Argentina's convertibility plan went from economic miracle to humanitarian disaster. How a policy that killed hyperinflation ended up killing the economy. And how the experts who designed it watched it fail in slow motion, but refused to touch it until it was too late. This is the story of how human consequences become collateral damage when reversing course requires admitting error. Let me show you what it felt like. It's November 2001. You're 35 years old. You're an accountant at a small firm in Buenos Aires. Decent job, middle class. You've done everything right. In 1995, you took out a mortgage, borrowed $45,000 US dollars to buy an apartment. Why dollars? Because under convertibility, 1 peso equals $1 by law. The government guaranteed it. The banks offered dollar loans at 8% interest instead of peso loans at 15%. Seemed like a no-brainer. Your monthly mortgage payment is $380, which equals 380 pesos. Your salary is 1,800 pesos per month. You can afford it, easily. But over the past 3 years, things have changed. Argentina's been in recession since 1998. Your firm cut salaries by 15% in 1999, cut another 10% in 2000. You're now making 1,350 pesos per month. But your mortgage is still $380. Still 380 pesos. Because the peg holds, 1 peso equals $1 by law. 30% of your income goes to the mortgage now. It's tight, but manageable. You cut expenses. You stop eating out. You cancel the cable TV. You make it work. Your neighbor, Roberto, he's not so lucky. He owns a small textile factory, makes shirts for export. In 1997, business was good. Brazil, Argentina's biggest trading partner, was buying everything he could produce. Then in 1999, Brazil devalued its currency by 40%. Overnight, Brazilian shirts became 40% cheaper. Roberto's shirts, priced in dollars because of the peso dollar peg, became 40% more expensive. His orders dried up. He laid off half his workers in 2000, the other half in 2001. Now his factory sits empty. He's 3 months behind on his mortgage. The bank is threatening foreclosure. You ask him, why doesn't the government just devalue, let the peso fall, make Argentine exports competitive again? He laughs, a bitter laugh. Because Domingo Cavallo would rather die than admit convertibility failed. Because the IMF would cut off loans if we break the peg. Because everyone with dollar debts, everyone like us, would be destroyed by devaluation. He's right. You have a dollar mortgage. If the peso devalues to 2 to 1, your 380 peso payment becomes 760 pesos, more than half your income. You'd lose your apartment, so the government holds the line, maintains the peg, insists the problem is fiscal policy, not the exchange rate. Cuts government spending, raises taxes, slashes public sector wages, but it doesn't work. Because the fundamental problem isn't fiscal, it's that the peso is overvalued. Argentine goods cost too much. Argentine exports can't compete. The economy keeps contracting. By mid-2001, unemployment is around 23%, and 40,000 companies have shut down since 1998. The government can barely pay salaries. Provinces start printing quasi-currencies, bonds that can be used like money, because there aren't enough real pesos in circulation. You go to work every day wondering if your firm will survive another month. Every client who goes bankrupt is one less source of revenue. Every tax increase makes survival harder. Then, November 29th, 2001, you hear whispers at work. Big investors are pulling money out of Argentine banks. Capital flight. Bank run. You rush to your bank during lunch. The line stretches around the block. People are panicking, trying to withdraw dollars before they're gone. You wait 2 hours, finally reach the teller. I want to withdraw $5,000 from my savings. The teller looks at you with exhausted eyes. Sir, the computers are slow today. Come back tomorrow. But you know, everyone knows. The computers aren't slow. The dollars are gone. December 1st, 2001. Finance Minister Domingo Cavallo announces the Corralito. Cash withdrawals limited to 250 pesos per week. Your life savings, $12,000 you've been accumulating for 10 years, is locked inside the bank. You can't access it, can't withdraw it, can't use it. It's yours, but it's not yours. Trapped behind a banking system that's collapsing. Your wife starts crying when you tell her. Not loud crying, quiet, defeated crying, because she knows what this means. Your daughter's university fund, gone. Your emergency savings, gone. Everything you've worked for, locked away. The protests start immediately. Cacerolazos, people banging pots and pans in the streets. At first, it's the unemployed, the desperate. Then it's everyone. You and your wife join the protests, standing in Plaza de Mayo, banging pots, screaming at the presidential palace. Que se vayan todos, the crowd chants. They all must go, not just the president, not just Cavallo, everyone, every politician, every banker, every expert who told you convertibility was safe. They all must go. December 19th. President de la Rua declares a state of emergency. That night, the protests turn violent. Police fire into crowds. By December 21st, 39 people are dead, most of them in poor neighborhoods, most of them killed by provincial police forces. December 20th, de la Rua resigns, flees the presidential palace in a helicopter while rocks hit the roof. You watch it on TV. The president of Argentina running away like a thief. Over the next 12 days, Argentina has 5 presidents. 5. Adolfo Rodriguez Saa lasts 7 days. He declares the largest sovereign default in history, $100 billion, and then quits. Finally, Eduardo Duhalde takes over. On January 6, 2002, he does what everyone knew had to be done 3 years ago. He ends convertibility, devalues the peso. First to 1.4 per dollar, then lets it float. Within 5 months, the peso crashes to 4 per dollar. 4 times the official rate. Your $380 mortgage is now 1,520 pesos, more than your entire monthly income. You can't pay it. Nobody can. The government declares pacificación. All dollar debts converted to pesos at 1 to 1. All dollar deposits converted at 1.4 to 1. It's theft by decree. You deposited dollars, you get back devalued pesos. You borrowed dollars, you pay back cheap pesos. Your $12,000 in savings becomes 16,800 pesos. At the new exchange rate of 4 to 1, that's $4,200. Roberto next door, he's worse off. His factory is worthless, his equipment worthless. His debt's converted, but his business is dead. No one's buying shirts. No one has money for anything except food. And that's if you can find food. Grocery stores have empty shelves. Farmers refuse to sell for pesos. They want dollars, real money. The peso is worthless paper again. But here's the truly sick part. None of this was a surprise, none of it. In 1999, economists started warning the IMF, the peso is overvalued. Argentina needs to devalue or switch to a currency basket or dollarize completely. Maintaining the one-to-one peg is unsustainable. The IMF knew. Internal documents from that period show they knew. They calculated the peso was overvalued by 20–30%. They knew the economy couldn't grow with an overvalued currency. They knew unemployment would keep rising. But they kept lending money, kept supporting convertibility. Why? Because Argentina was their showcase. Their proof that free market reforms work. Devaluation would mean admitting the model failed. In 2000, the IMF approved a $40 billion emergency loan package, the largest in IMF history at that time, not to devalue, to maintain the peg, to give Argentina time to adjust. But time doesn't fix structural problems. Time just lets them fester. By 2001, everyone knew the end was coming. The question wasn't if Argentina would devalue, it was when and how bad the explosion would be. In March 2001, Cavallo returned as economy minister, the same Cavallo who created convertibility in 1991. The father of the one-to-one peg. He was brought back to save his own creation. He tried everything except the one thing that would work. He imposed new taxes, he cut spending, he negotiated debt swaps, he begged the IMF for more loans. But he wouldn't touch the peg, couldn't touch it. Because convertibility wasn't just economic policy anymore, it was his legacy, his identity. Admitting it needed to end was admitting his life's work was a failure. In June 2001, a group of prominent Argentine economists published an open letter. They laid out the math. Showed that debt was unsustainable. Showed that the peg was killing the economy. Recommended immediate devaluation in a controlled manner before markets forced an uncontrolled collapse. Cavallo dismissed them as pessimists and lack of patriotism. In September, the IMF sent a mission to Buenos Aires. Behind closed doors, they told Cavallo the same thing. Devalue now or face catastrophe later. Cavallo refused. He believed, genuinely believed, that with enough fiscal adjustment and enough IMF loans, convertibility could survive. He was wrong, catastrophically, murderously wrong. By November, capital was fleeing Argentina at $100 million per day. The banking system was collapsing. The government was broke. And still, Cavallo held the line. On December 5, 2001, the IMF finally gave up. They refused to disburse the next loan payment. Argentina was on its own. That's when Cavallo announced the Corralito, freeze bank accounts, trap people's savings, buy time. But you can't buy time by stealing from your citizens. You can't maintain confidence by proving you're desperate. The country exploded. And Cavallo, the brilliant economist, the Harvard-trained technocrat, the man who killed hyperinflation, watched his creation destroy the nation. On December 19th, he resigned, 2 days before the president fled. 2 weeks before convertibility finally died. He left behind a country in ruins. GDP had fallen 10% since 1998, over half the population in poverty, an entire middle class wiped out, a generation's worth of savings vaporized. And here's the most twisted part. After everything collapsed, after all the pain and suffering, the Argentine economy recovered, fast. By 2003, with the peso at a realistic exchange rate, exports boomed, factories reopened, unemployment fell, growth returned. All the terrible things Cavallo said would happen if they devalued, hyperinflation, economic collapse, total chaos, didn't happen. Yes, there was a painful transition. Yes, people suffered. But it was nothing compared to 3 years of slow strangulation under an overvalued currency. If they had devalued in 1999, it would have hurt. But it would have been surgical, quick, survivable. Instead, they waited. Let the wound get infected. Let the gangrene spread until amputation was the only option. The decision to maintain convertibility from 1999 to 2001 killed more people, destroyed more wealth, and caused more suffering than devaluation ever would have. And everyone knew it, at every step. The IMF knew, the World Bank knew, Argentine economists knew, Cavallo knew. But reversing course required admitting error. Admitting that the economic miracle of the 1990s was built on an unsustainable foundation. Admitting that the experts were wrong. So they didn't reverse. They doubled down. They held the line. They sacrificed human beings on the altar of credibility. So, what's the lesson? First, understand this. Sunk costs are poison. The convertibility plan worked in 1991. It killed hyperinflation. It stabilized the economy. It was the right decision at the right time. But by 1999, it had stopped working. The world had changed. Brazil devalued. The dollar strengthened. Argentina's economy needed flexibility. Convertibility became a straitjacket. But because it had been successful, because it was politically popular, because Cavallo's reputation depended on it, they couldn't let it go. They confused a good decision in 1991 with a good decision forever. They forgot that policies have contexts, that what works today might not work tomorrow, that adapting is strength, not weakness. Second lesson, credibility is not more important than reality. The entire defense of convertibility from 1999-2001 was about credibility. If we devalue, investors will lose faith. If we break the peg, markets will panic. If we admit error, no one will trust us again. But here's the thing. When your policy is destroying your economy, you've already lost credibility. When unemployment hits 23% and 40,000 companies shut down, pretending everything is fine doesn't preserve credibility. It destroys it. Markets aren't stupid. Investors aren't blind. They knew Argentina was in trouble. They knew the peg was unsustainable. Stubbornly maintaining a failing policy didn't reassure them. It terrified them. If Argentina had devalued in 1999 and said, "We are making a difficult but necessary adjustment to preserve long-term stability," markets would have understood. Some capital would have fled. Some pain would have occurred. But controlled pain is better than catastrophic collapse. Instead, they lied. They pretended. They maintained the illusion until reality smashed through with 39 dead bodies in the streets. Third lesson, expertise without humility is dangerous. Domingo Cavallo was brilliant. Harvard PhD, former central bank president, respected by the IMF, the World Bank, international investors. He understood economics better than almost anyone in Latin America. But he couldn't admit he was wrong. His expertise became arrogance. His success became hubris. He believed he could bend reality to fit his theory. He couldn't. Nobody can. The most dangerous people in economic policy are the ones who are usually right. Because when they're wrong, they can't see it. They explain away evidence. They dismiss critics. They double down. Cavallo had surrounded himself with people who agreed with him, who believed in convertibility as dogma, who saw devaluation as heresy. When reality contradicted the model, they blamed reality. Labor markets aren't flexible enough. Fiscal policy isn't tight enough. If we just adjust this variable and tweak that parameter, the model will work. But models don't determine reality. Reality determines models. And when the two diverge, you don't fix reality. You fix the model. Fourth lesson, and this is the one that should haunt us. The cost of refusing to reverse course is always paid by the powerless. Cavallo didn't lose his savings in the Corralito. The IMF economists didn't lose their jobs. The international investors who fled in November 2001 with their capital intact didn't suffer. You did. Roberto did. The 57.5% of Argentines living in poverty in 2002 did. The 39 people killed by police did. When experts make decisions behind closed doors, they don't bear the consequences. They write papers about it later. They analyze what went wrong. They give interviews explaining how it wasn't really their fault. Meanwhile, real people lose everything. Savings, jobs, homes, lives. Economics isn't a game. It's not an intellectual exercise. Every policy decision has a human cost. And when you refuse to reverse a bad decision because it would hurt your reputation or your career or your legacy, you're choosing your ego over other people's survival. That's not economics. That's murder by spreadsheet. The final lesson. This is happening again. Right now. All over the world, policymakers are maintaining failed policies because reversing them would require admitting error. Central banks keeping interest rates too low for too long. Governments refusing to reform unsustainable pension systems. Countries maintaining currency pegs that no longer work. And in every case, the logic is the same. We can't reverse course now. We've come too far. Markets expect us to stay the course. Changing direction would cause panic. But staying the course when the course leads off a cliff doesn't prevent panic. It guarantees catastrophe. Argentina's lesson is simple. Reverse bad decisions before they become disasters. Admit error before error becomes tragedy. Value human consequences over professional pride. Anything else is just countdown to collapse. So now I want to hear from you. Drop a comment right now and tell me where you're watching this from. Your city, your country. Because this story isn't about Argentina in 2001. It's about what happens when experts refuse to reverse course. Are you seeing it where you live? Policies that aren't working but won't be changed. Leaders doubling down on failed approaches. Economic decisions made behind closed doors that regular people pay for. Tell me what you're seeing. Because the Corralito isn't just Argentine history, it's a pattern. And it's repeating. And if this video showed you how one small decision that nobody would reverse destroyed millions of lives, hit that subscribe button. Because here at Colapso, we uncover the economic decisions made behind closed doors, choices that looked harmless on paper but devastated millions in real life. Economies don't fail by chance. They fail when human consequences are treated as collateral damage. I'll see you in the next collapse.